Folks, listen.
Welcome to another episode of D&M, bringing questions for you that we find interesting. We don't know until the other person says, and bring a mystery to the table for all the generations. Two people from two different backgrounds trying to make sound about the world around us. They both bringing light to the questions they ask. Dina and Michael sliding in your DMs with class. Hey, it's D&M. Hey, it's D&M. D&M. It's D&M. Hey, it's D&M.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Sliding with D&M. We are filming episode 9 today. It's wild how far we've come. We've been doing this for about 2 months now, and 9 episodes in.
Has it really been that long? Has it been 2 months already?
Yeah, we started at the beginning of January. It's almost March.
I know. Remember
And
we were like... Go ahead, sorry.
When this is going to be released, it will be mid-March, actually. So
yeah, well, isn't it crazy to know that we were like, oh, we're only going to do 4 episodes, and here we are. We're almost like we've doubled the amount of episodes that we said that we were going to do. So I think it's fun. I think it's good. I think we both are enjoying this and having great dialogues and conversations. So are you ready to get into today's question?
Yeah, so This week I have cultural and Dina has global, and Dina's definitely going to kick us off this week.
Okay, so I'm going to go first. So, essentially, a year ago was the day the Earth stood still. That's a movie, by the way. They have an older version and a remake with Keanu Reeves. I think it was Keanu Reeves that was in it. Was the day the Earth stood still and everything stopped and life kind of came to a halt as we know it. And we were like, it's only going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks, and then we're going to be right back up and running. And here we are, basically almost 365 days later. So my question to you, and it's a global question, I feel like, is do you feel that you are better off now than you were 365 days ago amidst this pandemic? And when I say better off, it can be a variety of things, emotionally, financially, just whatever. But do you feel like you are in a better place now than you were 365 days ago? And go.
All right. I don't know. I really don't, because the whole pandemic is this real, like, surreal experience for me. So around the time, it was spring break, so it was the second week of March, which is pretty much a year ago. Me and my friend were having dinner. It was the day before we were supposed to leave for spring break. We were having dinner, and she was going to take a trip with her family to California, Northern California, for spring break. And I had been reading current events, and just because that's something that I enjoy doing. And I kind of jokingly said to her, like, ha ha ha, don't get COVID and bring it back, and the university is going to have to shut down because of you. And I haven't seen her since in person. So, like,
you haven't seen her since?
Yeah.
Is she okay? Like, legit serious?
No.
Is she okay now?
No, like, legit serious. She's fine. Like, we text pretty much every day, and we FaceTime, and like I haven't seen her in person in a year. Okay. So, like, it's this really surreal experience for me because I'm going to admit to some potentially nefarious activities. So we went to a party the weekend before spring break, and there was extracurricular activities involved. So everybody was having a good time. It was this whole house full of people. It was like everybody was having a good time, and it was like one of the best, like, social experiences I had with my friend groups to that point in college, right? And then we went to spring break, and I spent spring break with my girlfriend and her family. And then we got an email, and the university said that we get a week extension due to COVID. So everybody was excited. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we get an extra week of spring break. Like classes are canceled for a week. We're all like really excited about this." And then that week kind of turned into forever. So it's just really surreal for me. So that's like my background to my answer. I want to touch on just a couple different things. The first of which
Okay.
being financially. So financially, I've been very blessed. I've actually saved a lot of money living in the COVID like experience because I elected to do the semester from home instead of
Okay.
living on campus. So I've saved a lot of money living at home and not paying for housing and not paying for food. So I've been very lucky in that manner because there's people who I know who are very close to me who are not as fortunate as I am. I also work part time, so I'm grateful to have a job in this experience as well. So financially, I would say that I am doing better. Um, with my social life, I would say that, like everybody's, it has definitely taken like a brick's fall, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
very few people who have the same social life as they did over a year ago today. Um,
Yes.
so the one thing that I do want to say is that a group of friends, including me, were looking for a house off campus for this year. And when we got notified by the university that we were getting an extra week spring break, I kind of put that on pause for the people who were looking for a house involved with me. And I kind of said, like, hey, we should see how this plays out. Like, I'm not sure if I want to put down a security deposit and first month's rent if we're not even sure we're going to have classes next semester.
Okay.
So when the university notified us that there was going to be a option to go hybrid and work from home for the next year, I elected to take that up and notified the people who were looking for housing with me that that's what I was going to do. And like I always do, I kind of presented it how it was. And I basically said that I'm going to work from home this year. So I understand that that puts you guys in a tough situation, and I'm sorry for that. But at the end of the day, I'm doing what's better for me. And I really hope that whatever you choose to do,
Mm-hmm.
if that's best for you, that that works out for you. So the people
Yes. Okay.
who I was going to live with ended up also staying home for the year. And that seems to have worked out for them pretty well. Um, Emotionally, it's been a very tough year. I think that just goes for everybody. And I'm not going to give too many details here just because I don't want to share too much. And I think you know some of the stuff that has gone on in the past year in my
Mm-hmm.
life. Um, but it's been challenging, and I think that it's definitely a point in my life that, like everybody else's, that's been something that we've never dealt with before. That has been, I would argue, 2020 is probably one of the most historical years in modern history. You know what I mean?
Yes. I would agree with
So
you on
much
that.
has happened. So much has happened with global pandemics and um, the racial injustice that has gone on, and politics, and just uncertainty. Um,
Yes.
it's been tough. It really has, and I think it's been tough not only for me. I think it's been tough for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I am better off than I was a year ago today.
Okay.
But in others, like I really strive. I really want that old life back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I really want to be able to get together with my friends and meet new people, or go to parties, or go to different cities and explore, or eat new food. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's just not a possibility. And I honestly don't see that being a possibility for the next few years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's been tough. Like, it really has. I don't know how to describe it in like other words. It really just has been a hard year.
Okay. All right. Well, here's my answer to that question. Um, Financially, um, yes, my family and I are in a better state. Now, let me preface this by saying that at the start of 2020, I had kind of taken a supervisor position of what I was previously doing for my job. So I just started a new job. Everything was going well. I was learning. I was enjoying what I was doing. And then the pandemic hit. And then I continued in my job for about 2 weeks, and then I lost my job. So, and not only did I lose my regular day job, my side job, or I guess my side hustle, you want to call it, is I'm also a choreographer for different local theater groups and high schools for musicals. So, my winter, for most people, where it typically isn't as crazy, because winter seems to be those months where people kind of calm themselves and kind of find quiet in the winter, is the complete opposite for me. That is when I am just literally getting started. And so we had one show that I was working on at a local high school that actually successfully opened and went through their weekend. And then the following weekend, everything shut down. And then 2 weeks later, I lost my job. So there was that point for me that I completely was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Um, because I hadn't been in my new position long enough that I wasn't sure about unemployment. Like, if you've been in your position job for many years, like, you file for unemployment. On the other hand, I'd only been in that new position since January. So I was like, how does unemployment work for me? I'd never really filed for unemployment before.
Hmm.
Just because um, what I did before I took this position, I did work in education as a paraprofessional. So we typically don't work over the summer. But usually, what I would do is I would just save up, put extra aside. So when it came to the summer months when I didn't work, I already had that amount covered. So I never really filed for unemployment because I was already saving that and putting extra aside. So it would cover the difference when I didn't work for the 2.5 months. Plus, like, doing my choreography jobs as well, that also supplemented. So I never filed for unemployment. But here I was, had to figure out how to file for unemployment and how to do those things. And then obviously through federal regulations and things, because of unemployment, I was blessed to receive that extra help, like many, many Americans receive that extra help through unemployment. And so it did put our family in a better financial spot. I will be honest with you, which allowed us to, take care of things and make sure that we were still able to function every day and do the things that we needed to do. And of course, like with anything, when things go crazy, that's when everything goes crazy. And so at the time, like, our refrigerator went out, and then our dishwasher went out, and then our washing machine went out. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure many of you can relate to this. Like, everything seems to be fine. And then when things are like down the drain
Yeah.
is when everything breaks down. So financially, I feel like, yes, we were blessed in the sense that we were able to have that extra help through unemployment and through other federal regulations that I was able to receive. And obviously, my husband was an essential worker, so he continued to work his job. And I think we would have been fine whether or not I would have been able to, if I would have had not been eligible for unemployment, because my husband was blessed enough to be considered an essential worker for what he does in his daily job, that we would have been okay. And then obviously when things kind of resettled and my job kind of did some restructuring, I was offered my position back and I was able to return to the job that I had gotten in January, which is what I'm currently doing. So financially, yes, I feel like you, we were put into a better spot. Emotionally, the first month and a half to 2 months of the pandemic were rough for me because you know me well. I am a let's go do,
Mhm.
let's go
Mhm.
get this done. And for me in that moment, everything completely stopped.
Mhm.
Um, I lost my job, my regular job. I also teach dance classes at night at two different studios, local studios. And so they were trying to figure out, how do we hold dance classes? We can't have dance classes, because our state was one of those states where if it wasn't an essential business, it wasn't allowed to be open. So dance
Yeah.
studio is not an essential business, so you can't be open. The other musicals I was currently in the process of working on, besides the one that did have its production run and was very successful, they all stopped. So I went from being like go 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 to nothing. And so the first 2 months of the pandemic were pretty rough for me because I felt like I did not have an identity anymore. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my gosh. And it almost reminded me of when my kids were little and I was a stay at home mom. I was a stay at home mom again. But this time, when you're a stay-at-home mom and your kids are younger, they need you for things. Like you're making meals and you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing this. But when you're a stay-at-home mom and your kids are older, I was in this weird position of, my kids don't really need anything. Like they can make themselves a sandwich if they really need to make themselves a sandwich. And even though I still do the laundry, they all really know how to do the laundry. So like I would put the laundry in and then they would like switch it out, and like it was weird. It was a weird position to be in and not really have things to
A
do, but do
purpose.
have
Yeah.
things. Yeah. And um but then I started kind of turning to the things that I had missed out. I love to create art journals and work in my art journal and also create scrapbooking. So I started to turn to the things that I love most, and that's art and creating art and kind of working on those things and doing some small like redecorating and house projects. Like I refinished an old dresser for my oldest son's room, and just kind of doing things that I had lost touch with because I had always been so go 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 go. um and so, but I think it was also good for me because it was the first time in a really long time that I had taken a break. And so when I say that, um let's see. Oh my gosh, my husband is going to kill me. Okay, so we've been married for it'll be 22 years this August. And so the last time that I really truly took a break where I wasn't working my day job, I wasn't choreographing, I wasn't teaching dance classes, I wasn't like doing artsy things. I say artsy things, was right before our 20th wedding anniversary, which was almost 2 years ago. I had basically been constantly working straight through, and we got married in August. So right before, like, and I was still teaching, like I was teaching at summer arts camps and I was doing this. I hadn't really truly taken a break until our 20th anniversary, where we went to South Carolina and then we traveled and we went on a cruise and we went to some different places. That was the last time that I had really truly like taken a break from
Yeah.
everything. Like I wasn't working. And so I hadn't done that since then, right? That was, well, now to be over 2 years ago, but at the time it was over almost a year and a half ago. So I think it was a good moment for me to just take a deep breath because I hadn't taken a deep breath for such a long time,
Hmm.
and recognize that, I need to slow down. So emotionally, after that first 2 month period of it being rough, like what is my purpose and what am I doing? Emotionally, I felt better because I was taking a break that I didn't realize that I needed, but I needed more than I knew.
Hmm.
And so for me, the pandemic offered that chance to slow down. And then, like I said, we initially were supposed to travel out west to see family, but obviously that fell through just because of the pandemic. So then we made the choice to travel down south. And I have said this before, that you can still travel, you just have to travel smarter. You just have to be aware of your surroundings and where you're going. You might have to do a little bit of research. So you may not be going to that popular touristy place. It may be you're staying at your condo or the beach house, wherever you're staying, and you're ordering takeout and having it delivered DoorDash. But if it allows you to have a change of scenery or a change of pace and still be with your family, and you can do so safely, I highly encourage it. And I think for us, that 2 weeks at the beach, we went for two, was great because we did all those things. We stayed in our condo. We did go to the beach, but we socially distanced at the beach. We made sure that we were far away from other groups and we weren't interacting with them. And that, if we did order out food, we did takeout, or we had it Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatever method, of delivery that we could. Now, I will say this, my husband, the second week we were down there, it was our 21st wedding anniversary. We did go out to eat. However, I called around to several places to see if they took reservations, what was the capacity for the total restaurant, and made sure that the place that we wound up going to a really small Italian eatery, was following COVID guidelines. That was very important to me. Like, I wanted to celebrate with my husband. I didn't want it to be like, oh my gosh, here we go, we can't celebrate. Like, because listen,
Yeah.
21 years is a long time. Let's be clear, it's a long time. Like, you've put some work in for 21 years. So, it took a little bit more effort, than typical, like, oh, let's get in the car and go. But at the end of the day, we followed all the guidelines and we did all the things that we needed to do so we could go out. And like I said, we went to a small Italian restaurant. They only had so many people. We made a reservation. And by the way, we only had a certain amount of time to be in the restaurant as well. So we went, we had our reservations, we went to dinner, and we still got to celebrate our anniversary. So I think you can still do those things. You just have to be smarter because you know better. You do know better. It's not like nobody has told you. You know better. So you just have to be better about it. I too can't wait for the day that we can gather together in large groups because we are people that need connection. We do. We so need connection, and that I can like hug my friends and be like, oh my gosh, I have missed you so much. So much. I remember you and we were supposed to go to New York. We were supposed to go see West Side Story. We had gotten tickets to go see West Side Story. And by the way, we'd gotten them super cheap. And we were super excited because it was a new telling. It was like a modern day version telling of the classic musical West Side Story. And it was and all the reviews had been excellent. Like, we stalk the reviews to see if it's going to be good before we buy the tickets to go see the show. And we had heard whisperings. And we're like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then what happened? It like closed down, like completely. And same thing. Like, so I was like, okay, all right, well, we're not going to see West Side Story. But then I also had tickets to go see Ain't Too Proud, the Temptation Stories 2 weeks later for one of my really good friends. Her son was graduating. And he's just awesome and wonderful. And so that was my graduation gift to him. So my oldest and myself and her son, we were going to go. And it was his graduation gift. We were going to go see that. We were going to go. And then, we were like, oh, it's 2 weeks later, so everything should be back up and running. And then they were like, nope, it's going to be longer than 2 weeks. So, so that was kind of like, heartbreaking because it was, you had something to look forward to, and then nope, it's not happening. And they were like, oh, we have something to look forward to, and then nope, it's not happening. So
Yeah,
I think it's going to be some time before life gets back to quote unquote, and I hate this term, but it's the only way to say it, the new normal, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. But in the meantime, I think there are still ways that we can travel, that we can do the things that we like to do, but we have to be smarter about it because we know better. We have to follow the guidelines. We have to do the things that we need to do to protect each other. And so if that means we have to wear masks for a little bit longer, it's okay, because at the end of the day, it's going to help the collective. And I look at these countries that they have been pretty much COVID free for a while.
Mhm.
but that's because they did what was necessary for the collective, which is why their citizens probably feel better about the pandemic than what we do typically as Americans, right? And so I just hope that we can continue to see light at the end of the tunnel. We are seeing it. It is getting there eventually. And I just keep hoping that, you know, everyone will begin to see the hope and see the light and start to feel better about where they are than where they were a year ago. So I think that's
Mhm.
kind of my personal take on it, how I feel about it. Like financially, yes, I feel like we're better. And then
Yeah.
emotionally, I feel like I am a little bit better emotionally because, I had to work a little bit on some mental wellness, right? It's
Mhm.
like forced work
Yeah,
on mental wellness.
I think an important point that you made was that the the forced break was really nice, and I know a lot of people who early on also felt like this, whom I spoke with. They felt like that break was so enjoyable, right? But looking back on it, I just wish it wouldn't have lasted so long. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
I think so too. I think like I think yeah, I think I would have to agree with you. Like
Yeah.
I enjoyed the forced stoppage, the forced break. Did I expect that it would last this long? Absolutely not. But I think the dynamics of my life have changed in such a short amount of time that I have to appreciate the good, the bad, and the ugly that has come with, you know, 2020. So I like to think that, yes, financially, our family dynamic is in a better spot. And then I
Mm,
have to think that, yes, emotionally, for my mental health and wellness, I do feel like I am in a better spot. But the first 2.5, 3 months were pretty rough. Like, just, because I felt like I didn't have a definition of what I needed to do, but I think I came out through the other side feeling okay, which is,
yeah.
what I would hope everybody, and I know my story is not the same as everybody's, just like your story isn't the same as everybody's, but in general for me, I just want everyone to feel okay. Whether it be financially or emotionally or both. So that was my question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I haven't really
Thanks.
reflected back on the last year, so it was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we're going to transition to the second
Yeah.
part.
Go ahead. Let's
So
hear what you got.
we kind of touched on this a little bit while we were in green room, as we should call it. Uh, we kind of were talking about this amongst ourselves a little bit before we started recording, so that's why I kind of didn't offer too much of my own opinion on it. Um, so the original, before I tell you the question, I'm going to tell you a little bit
Okay.
of background. So
Okay.
I'm super busy during the days. I've been super like these last 2 weeks have been insane. And I find that if I start a new series that is super interesting, I get like enveloped in it and I want to finish it. So I procrastinate my work instead and I watch the show, right? Um,
Okay.
so I sometimes like to watch like just random shit that is not relevant, right? So there is
Okay.
a series on Disney Plus. It's called, I'm pretty sure it's called The World Through Jeff Goldblum's Eyes. And what it
Okay.
does is it follows Jeff Goldblum, very famous actor, right? He's
Yes.
68 now. So it follows him. I think this was filmed like a couple of years ago, definitely pre
Is he
COVID. So
really 68? Is he that
yeah,
old?
yeah, he's almost 70 years old.
I did
He's,
not realize he was 70. Sorry to digress, but like, I
yeah,
mean, I still think of him back from like, when he was in Jurassic Park. Like,
yeah.
he was Malcolm in Jurassic Park. And he was also the dude in Thor in Ragnarok.
Yes, he was. He was in Ragnarok. Ragnarok was one of his newer movies, but he was also in The Fly. And there's
Yes.
a
Yes.
couple other huge movies that he was in. But yes, he is
Okay. Good.
68 now, so he's getting up there in age. And basically, what the show focuses on is each episode is dedicated to a different topic. So the first episode was about sneakers. So 60, he might be like 65 in the episode filming, right? So
Okay.
65-year-old Jeff Goldblum goes to Sneaker Con and learns all about how sneakers have changed over time. So
Okay.
he mentions when he was a kid, all he had was one pair of Keds, and now there's these rare Nikes that release that cost hundreds of dollars, but then if you buy them, demand is so high that you can sell them for thousands, right? So he
Okay.
experiences the market around sneakers and learns all about sneakers. And each episode is totally different. There was one about sneakers, like I said, there was one about pools. Coffee was an episode, RVs, bicycles, barbecue, right? He tattoos. He does a whole bunch of different episodes, and each one focuses on something different and focuses on what he learns and also the history behind that topic. So, one
Okay.
of the episodes, which we are going to focus on, was about drag queens. So, I have culture, and I would like to know the culture behind drag queens. So, if you don't know, if you're out there listening, if you don't know, in Dina's younger years, she danced backup for a drag queen who was very close to her. He was a mentor to her. And that is one of the things that I find most interesting about Dina because not a lot of people have experiences, personal experiences with drag queens, let alone dance back up for them. So I want you to educate all of us about drag queen culture because I don't really know a lot about it myself. I think it's highly stigmatized. I think there's a huge cloud over drag queen culture, especially coming at it from a masculine view. So yeah.
I knew at some point this was going to come up. I knew we were going to talk about it. I just didn't know it would be so soon, but that is totally fine. I knew at some point this was going to happen. Okay. So, yes, for those that don't know me well, one of my dance teachers I had growing up who was fabulous in every single way, and also a mentor to me, like Michael mentioned. I did not find out until when I was older. So let me just preface this by saying, when I was younger in his class, like 9 or 10, like I didn't know that he was a drag queen. Okay. I did
Mhm.
not find out until pretty much I was like my senior year and I was graduating, right? I'm 18. At that point, I'm an adult. I can know that information. I feel like at that point, it's okay to share.
Mhm.
So, because I was one of his students and I had a dance background, he asked if I would dance backup in one of his numbers one time. And I was like, oh, sure. And I did not think anything of it. I was like, listen, it's a dancing gig. I'm going to get paid a little bit of bucks. Sweet, right? I'm
Mhm.
18, gas money.
Yeah.
Um, so I did this for several years. And by the way, for those of you that may or may not be aware, there are actually pageants, just like similar beauty pageants for straight females. Um, there are beauty pageants for drag queens, and there are levels. And then once you get to a certain level, then you go to state. And then once you go to state, you can become national. And I believe they even have international. So, and by the way, he was fantastic in every way. He did win Miss Pennsylvania one year. And I felt honored and grateful to be a part of that win and to dance back up in his number that he created for that show. But it's same thing. They have an evening gown. They have a costume where they create like a themed costume.
Mhm.
And then they also have their interview question. They do, I believe it's two interview questions. One they do as no makeup, like no fanciness, nothing. It's just
Mhm.
you as a straight man, not as a straight male or straight or whatever, as a male, right? You do your
Mhm.
interview, suit, tie, whatever you want to wear. Then they do an interview question where they are in like their drag makeup. So they kind of have like
Mhm.
2 rounds of interview questions.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think they do swimwear. At least I'm not aware unless they've added it. When I was doing it, they did not have a swimwear. It was usually evening gown, costume, and then the 2 interview questions. One as yourself without any makeup on or drag queen, and then one as the drag queen. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the background for drag queen, and that's kind of how I got into it. I did it for many, many years until basically I had my first child. And then even then, so like after I had my first child, I did dance back up with him for a little bit, not as much, but I did do dance back up, you know, just for some side money because, you know, it was good money for the side.
Mhm.
Drag queen culture, it is such, it's actually a beautiful thing. It really is. And I feel so honored to have been brought into that world and to see that world, because at the end of the day, they are humans and they are such good people. Um, and I say this because obviously when you're performing at, you can perform at any type of club, but typically you're performing at LGBTQ clubs. Yes,
Mhm.
typically. And so, especially when I was younger, right? And I mean, I'll admit it, I was a little naive. I was like, sure, whatever, yeah, let's go. So they were always very protective of me and always made sure that I felt comfortable, which they totally didn't have to do. They did not have to make me feel comfortable at all. I agreed to do something. So if I'm agreeing to do it, it's on me to feel comfortable at where I'm at. But they were always so genuine and so loving and so kind and like, "Hey, how are you? How can I help you?" And it was such a beautiful thing to witness. I don't know if you watched the show on HBO or if you've ever watched it. They've only done one season, but I'm hoping they're doing season 2 because season 1 was fantastic. It's called We Are Here, and it's 4 drag queens. They were on RuPaul's Drag Race, and they were kind of probably the more popular drag queens. And so they go to different small towns. And actually, believe it or not, the very first episode, they went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So
Oh,
if you have
really?
HBO, yes, and it might even be on HBO Max if you have HBO Max. But they went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the very first episode, these 4 drag queens, because Gettysburg, let's face it, is a small town. It really is a
Mhm.
small town. Like outside the war stuff, there's not that I'm trying to knock Gettysburg. There's really
Yeah, there really
not
isn't a lot there.
there really isn't much to it, okay? And so they went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and they met with, and they typically have 3 different stories they follow. One is someone who's just not really comfortable in their own skin. Another one is typically someone that is straight that wants to show support for the LGBTQ community. And then the third story is kind of a toss up. Like sometimes it'll be someone that's just coming out for the first time or someone that wants to try drag and see if it's what they want to do. But they're such beautiful stories because it shows the humanity, you
Yeah.
know, and it brings out a different side of you. Um, and this not only goes for drag queens, but it goes for drag kings as well. There are female that dress as male and do drag. And it really is such a, it's a culture, but it's a beautiful culture. And I always felt so honored to be a part of it and to dance back up and to be invited into that world. And the fact that they treated me so wonderfully and so kind and so loving was just it was just it was a wonderful time. Like I do miss it. I mean, if I could, I mean, I can still move and dance, but if I could move and dance like I did when I was 18, 19, I would totally do it all over again with no regrets.
Right.
Um and just go to the different places and travel and be in the different places and visit. And I mean, and the work that it takes. It takes work, people. Like you have no idea the amount of work and the time it takes to put on all of that makeup, because you're making you have to give yourself the emphasis of looking like a female. So you have to highlight the cheekbones and you have to layer and then powder and layer them more and then put all the necessary body parts with the hip pads and everything that you need to give yourself a womanly appearance.
Mhm.
It is a lot of work. It's not just a let me throw on some like me, I just throw on some mascara and I'm out the door. Like it's not that kind of thing. But they are truly, it's an art form. And you know me, I appreciate art. I love anything artsy. And it really, it's not I don't even want to say a culture. I think it's an art form. It's just a beautiful art form. And by the way, drag shows are some of the best entertaining shows ever, 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 if you've ever seen one, like, you know, if you know what good, like, they work. They are working. They are hustling, working, and doing whatever they can. And they work so hard to entertain the audience. So you yourself feel good and enjoy what you're watching and enjoy what you're seeing. And when you leave that place, you feel good. And I just think that it's just a great thing. And I absolutely love it. And I would totally do it all over again if I could. And if I were given the opportunity, I would totally get my body in shape so I could do it. Like, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd be like, yes,
So
yes,
you do
I'm
it today.
there. I would do it today. If somebody called me up and was like, hey, I need you to learn this little piece of choreography and dance back up, I'd be like, yes, ma'am, I am there.
So let me
I
ask
would
you
be there.
this. So you mentioned all the time and effort that it takes to get ready. So did you strictly dance backup, or did you help out the queens in getting ready?
So I would help out the queen that I was dancing back up for.
Okay.
Now sometimes, like, and you would get to know them. You would get to know, like, you know, backstage. But
Mhm.
typically, I would help, you know, just the queen who my dance teacher who I consistently danced back up for. You
Mhm.
know, making sure that, you know, the hip pads were in place, because some, you know, and the layer of tights and the things, and helping with shoes and zipping up gowns and making sure everything is in
Yes.
place. Although sometimes, you know, if I was back there helping, you know, helping him get ready, and there was another queen who we knew well, be like, hey, can you come help me do this? I would be like, sure, I'll come help you, zip you up to it, like, you know what I mean? But you help them, and you know, it, like I said, it you don't know the amount of work and time. And if you do watch RuPaul's Drag Race, by the way, which love, right? And you see it's obviously staged for television,
Mhm.
right? You see them in the workroom doing stuff and making dresses and creating, and they are, like, some of them are creating their own outfits and creating their own looks and doing all of that. Some of them do order, you know, have people, because they can afford to order dresses and looks. And we're not talking these gowns are not cheap. Like, we're talking $1,500 to $2,000 to $3,000 sometimes that you are
Wow.
paying for a gown. Like, I'm telling you, it's a whole other level. It is a whole other level. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, so I think it's just an art form. It really truly is art. And I don't know, see, so I don't know if you see, well, I don't know, you probably don't, like, get these, you know, on Facebook, how stuff pops up, like the random videos pop up
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in your feed. So a lot of times, because I like RuPaul's Drag Race, right? And so those videos always pop up. But sometimes too, like, I know Cosmopolitan does the
Mhm.
little snippet of, like, drag queens doing their makeup, and obviously it's fast forwarded extremely fast because they're trying to get everything in like 3 to 5 minutes. But
Yeah.
it is not a 3 to 5 minute thing. It's, you know, because we would get, so, you know, let's say the drag show started at 10, right? So we would have to get to the club, I don't know, like 7:30, do a run through, like a
Mhm.
walkthrough of spacing, right? And then, and sometimes too, what would happen is the queen that I danced backup for, they would come with like a base, like a pre-base, meaning they had like some of the basic stuff on, like
Mhm.
the basic foundation, you know. And then after we would do kind of like our walk through the spacing and stuff at the club or whatever, like if we got there at 7, that would take till like 7:30, maybe 8 at the latest. And then from like 8 to 10, they're getting ready. They're putting their pads on. They're putting their tights on. They're putting the rest of their makeup on, putting the powder on, then another layer, then another layer, and then another layer. And then you got to get your first wig on and make sure that's all in place. And then, you know, you go out, you do your first number, whatever your first number is, right? He usually did 3 or 4 numbers throughout a whole entire show. And so
Wow.
usually because we were the backup dancers, we usually were in the last number. Like, that's like the
Mhm.
grand finale, like the big finale for him, you know. But think about it. Every queen is doing 3, maybe 4 numbers, right?
Yeah.
In a show. So, he would do his first number. So then he comes backstage and he changes. But in between that, because you don't want your makeup to sweat off, you got to touch up your makeup too. Because,
Yeah.
because you're out there sweating, you're working. Because you have all these layers on to make you look like a female. So you you got to get your makeup all together. You got to change your wig because you have on a different outfit. So it's a different theme. You go out and you do your second number. You come back. Same thing. Touch up your makeup. Make sure everything's good. Touch up your lips. Maybe redo a little bit of eye, like add a little bit of something extra to eye because this is a different look now, right? Change your wig again. Come out, do your next number, right? And so it is, when you are going to a drag show, you are seeing art, people. You literally, really, truly are seeing art. So if you ever want to go, I'm always down to go when everything like opens back up and we can go. It's great stuff. It really is great stuff. And you just truly gain an appreciation for the performance. And I'm an artsy girl and I love artsy and things that are performing. And so I would do it all again in a heartbeat if I could. And if I can and I get asked, I totally would. Hands down.
So there's a term that I often hear you use, and I would just like to give a quick definition for everybody listening out there. Oftentimes you'll use the word booger drag, and
okay.
At first, I didn't really realize what it was, so maybe you can define it for everybody.
Yes.
Because now that I understand, it's actually really funny.
Okay, so booger drag is now I don't know if they necessarily use this term today, but when I was back then, like 20 years ago, sometimes you had queens that necessarily did not look the best. So, and I think every queen evolves because they start to learn new methods and techniques. Obviously, when you're first starting out, and by the way, let's just be clear. Usually what they call like a drag mentor is like your drag mom, right? So if you're new to drag, right, you're a drag daughter, but you have somebody that they call your drag mom who's like your mentor that's helping you learn the ways of how to do drag correctly, okay? Mm-hmm. But sometimes if you do not have a drag mom that's your mentor and you don't know what you're doing and you just slap on any old kind of makeup, it can sometimes look like booger drag. And booger drag is drag that is not so good. So, and you have some of those where you're like, ooh, like, that just, it's not so hot. It's not so hot. Which is why, like, you should have a drag mom to be your mentor and you be the drag daughter to help you learn the ways of good drag. And obviously your style and aesthetic is going to change, but I think it's important to have that person there to mentor you through the process of, how to put your pads in correctly so your one hip is not crooked and the other one is straight, right? You know what I mean? Like you need someone, like with anything, you need someone to teach you those things. Like for instance, you got to make sure, because obviously by day, unless they live in drag full time, by day, most typically are male or female. So if you're a male and you're doing female drag, you got to make sure that you don't have a 5 o'clock shadow when you try to go put your makeup on. You know what I mean? Like you got to make sure that your face is shaven well, and and sometimes you would have those that didn't necessarily hit all the spots when they were shaven and left some of that 5 o'clock drag, like 5 o'clock shadow. And so like you just
this booger drag, just so everybody knows.
So I have used that term booger drag. I'm like, ooh, that was not no. And when I use it now, like sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's not good. Ooh, that's like booger drag. That's just not good. Like in general, it just means not good. But in the drag world, it was, ooh, that's just not good drag. But now for me, I'm like, ooh, it just means not good. Just not good, people. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. However, I do encourage you to go see a drag show. I think they're phenomenal. It's just beautiful art. So that's
maybe we will once the pandemic is fully over and things are back up and running. Maybe we will.
I hope so, because goodness gracious, I mean, how, I mean, I'm telling you, like, it's just art. It's such great art. And they perform and they work. They are working, right? So actually, last thing. So we have kept our bubble very small of who we hang out with, and so we hang out with our neighborhood ladies. Okay. It's like a group of 4 of us. We've become very close and very good friends who I love dearly. And all of our kids happen to be the same age. And they all have become closer. Like, they were all friends and we were all friends in the neighborhood, but because, we pretty much can't really hang out with anybody, we've hung out with each other. Not that we didn't hang out with each other before, but even more so. So, the one in our little friend group, the one family, they have a house at the beach. And so we decided to have a ladies' weekend, like just us moms. So we went down there and we had a ladies' weekend, and it was a fabulous time. And we went out, same thing, we did go out to eat. We made a reservation. We wore our mask and everything, but the club that we went to was having a drag show. And I was super excited because I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to see a drag show. Now, this was not your typical drag show. Some of the queens were actual female impersonation, like kind of impersonating. Like, one person did an impersonation of Reba McEntire. I think there was somebody did Carrie Underwood. So there was, and then there was some that they weren't necessarily in drag, but they were impersonating somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But the one, oh, I don't even know who she sang. She sang a bunch of songs, but she was African American, and let me tell you, she was great. Like, I was like, and usually when you go to a drag show, by the way, before COVID, pre-COVID, they would come out in the audience and mingle, and like, you tip them because they're working hard and they're performing. So you would, like, if you thought they were decent, you'd give them like $1 or $2 or whatever. So, but this, because they can't come down the audience and intermingle, like, if you wanted to give them a tip, they had a bucket, like a little fancy bucket on the side of the stage, and you could drop money in the bucket. So I did tip her well because, I appreciate good performance drag, and she was phenomenal and she was working it good. And I was like, girl, you earned your money tonight. Let me tip you well. So I did. So anyway, that's common etiquette for you. If you ever go to a drag show, make sure you tip well. And I don't know, each club is different, but the one we went to, they had buckets, and they said, if you feel like you would like to tip your performer, please drop money in the bucket. So I dropped money in her bucket when she came on. She performed twice. I dropped money in her bucket. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, that's sweet. So thank you for sharing all that knowledge. I hope you appreciate my question.
I did appreciate your question. I always appreciate your questions. I always like your questions. You always bring the sauce. I knew at some point we would talk about my drag queen history.
How could we not? I mean, that's so unique to you. I don't know anybody else who knows drag queens personally, and I feel like that's so interesting.
I'm sure. I mean, well, like I said, the other thing, besides the people that know me well, and I've told, most people, that's not, like you said, it's not something that you would really know about me unless I said, hey, this is what I used to do in my former life. Like, right? If you saw me on the street.
Well, now everybody knows your former life. So.
Now everybody knows what I did not even my former life, but just a lifetime ago, a little bit of lifetime ago. But I would gladly do it again in a heartbeat without any questions asked. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good stuff. Well, another good episode, another good conversation and dialogue. Like we said, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let us know. Drop us a line about the things that we talk about. If you have any interesting tidbits or facts or things that you would like to share with us, we are always willing to hear and to listen. And I'm Dina McKell.
And I'm Michael Petuhoff.
And this is Slidin with D&M.
Thank you guys for listening. We hope you tune in next week.